I got it on here, I was just picking on AB. All right, well, I call the meeting to order Thursday, August 8th, 5:30 PM. If everyone will stand with me, if able, and if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then a prayer from Councilman Orr. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God of justice and mercy, thank you for the gift of life and the opportunity to serve the people of our city. Help us act with character and conviction. Help us to listen with understanding and goodwill. Help us to speak with charity and restraint. Give us a spirit of service. Remind us that we are stewards of your authority. Guide us to be leaders of your people's needs. Help us see the humanity and dignity of those who disagree with us, and to treat all persons, no matter how weak or poor, with the reverence your creation deserves. And finally, Father, renew us with the strength of your presence and the joy of helping to build a community worthy of the human person. We ask this through your sons and daughters, confident in your goodness and love. Amen.
Amen. Cannot put that on the sheet. That you couldn't have said it. You have to keep it. Roy, you couldn't put that into that.
All right.
That's what, yeah.
I'll just sit back and y'all handle it.
That, those words couldn't have been put any plainer. That is very nice. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very good.
That's why
I
he
was
does.
looking for the collection plate, though.
Well, it's always a possibility.
I'll wait because somebody's signing in. All right, Kurt. And I'll go into agenda item number 3, which is city manager's report.
Mayor, Council, good afternoon. It's been a busy week for sure. So just want to give you a briefing that we switched over to our new phone system. So those are working good. We're still working a few bugs out of that. And in addition to that, we've also transitioned into our new IT company. So they've been working through all of our computers and stuff. That's one of the reasons that the packets got pushed out late this week, because basically we've been locked down and stuff off and on quite a bit. So we made some good headway over the past couple of days, and we're looking forward to that, because we believe we're going to end up in a good place, especially with our IT support and then our cybersecurity and stuff. So that's moving well now. So that's the update on those two items. Public Works, Derek?
I just asked a question about that. How do you feel about the response time? Do you have a concern, for this IT service? You feeling good about that?
Yeah, we are. There was a few hiccups, but all in all, for the most part, it's been really good. Yesterday, we've got our briefing, because officially we didn't really switch to the 100% IT support till yesterday, but there's always that transitional period. That's the gray period. So while we were kind of working through that and stuff, there was some hiccups, but once it gets established, then we're confident in it.
And then they're housed where?
Well, they're a nationwide company,
Right.
So they're all over the place, and 98% of what they do, they'll just log in through the system. But I think their closest tech is actually in Brenham.
So we needed someone
they
who would
have
come from Brenham. If you had to have boots on the ground.
possible, yeah, yes, yeah. So there.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. We've been going around doing some pole inspections, and we have some poles that, we've been working on replacing. And then we have some new developments or new buildings where we're running power and gonna build that to get those customers power. And then This week, we've been going around picking up tree limbs. And then we also been cutting some tree limbs. I know they're all over town, all in the power lines and everything, so we're trying to get a grasp on that and keep moving forward. You wanna talk?
We finally got our generator for the water plant. So I'm very happy about that. Just filled it up with gasoline today and should do the startup procedure tomorrow. We also have our polyphosphate hooked up to the well system. This is something that was initiated long ago, but it finally got. So this polyphosphate will coat the pipes, the water pipes, I'm sorry, and so that the leakage won't fall off the pipes into the water. So it's a protectant. We're experimenting with it at this site. It may be necessary to add it at another site. What we're doing is checking the concentration at the farthest end of the city, and seeing how it mixes. So may have to add another one, but I'll investigate that and let you know. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Is that, per our last meeting, that make all 5 of the wells, because some of them are kind of in a backup setting, right?
Yeah.
And that now we're all good to go on all 5 wells?
No, sir. They're still in backup setting. The water quality of these wells, I'm getting investigated, and looking at what I can do to improve it. But it is drinkable. If I have to put it out, I can put it out. So I don't want to put it out though, not until I get all the chemistry together on it.
One of them was that, what, the sulfur problem and,
The sulfur problem, the iron problem.
And the iron
Yes, sir. And it has a lot, so far, what I understand, it has a lot to do with the filtration,
The aerator.
the aerator that I have there, so. But I'm looking into it. I just had the ground storage tanks and the elevator storage tanks inspected. He just kind of waiting on this report. And that'll give me an idea also of how the gases are deteriorating what we have. So I'll get back with you.
very good.
And then also, well number 10, Mercer Control was out last week to install a new meter for that well,
A flow meter.
a flow meter, because the one that we had wasn't working, and, you know, TCEQ regulations, you have to have a flow meter. So Mercer Controls installed that last week and got that going also.
So that was a major part that we needed to actually get going.
Very good.
We have any spikes in usage? I mean, we hit 700,000, 800,000? Do we have a point where we would restrict?
Water?
Yes.
Oh, no. Your aquifer is giving us enough water to maintain. I don't see that happening where we're.
You don't see any,
Yeah, we're using less than 500,000 gallons a day,
really?
and that's really not a lot of water.
No.
Yeah.
I recall having 700, 800.
Yeah, especially during the summer. I mean,
Yeah.
this time of the year, it's usually spikes
Well,
up.
Yeah.
And if we got to that point, then we'd kick in those other 2 wells, which would give
If
us
necessary.
more than sufficient,
But
yes.
right now,
Right.
we're able to run all of
Oh, yes, ma'am.
That's good.
Right.
Which are still potable enough that they could go out to households.
Yes,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
very
Yeah.
safe to drink.
Yeah.
It's just has a color and a odor, but yeah, it's
Right.
very safe.
Okay.
Are we still spraying the curb lines, like along, or are we still having anybody from the city doing that at all?
Yes, sir, we do. As a matter of fact, he did it last week.
Okay.
So,
Just a couple streets, I know like on East North Street.
Okay,
It's
we can do that.
pretty thick, and then also along College Street, at West Post Office, you can't even see the curb line, it's so thick. with the
Okay.
Grass, so just a heads up, if you don't mind looking into that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Take care of that, yes.
I had one more question. What our status is on concern that was brought to us about the parking at that, on what is Northwest Street that's right across from the junior high, and that the concern about whether it's gonna stay angled, or I guess just park like we do along most households, with no lines. Is that because schools start next week, that's why I'm wondering, where are we on that?
We're waiting to get the asphalt company out here, so we're in the queue to get out here, but it's.
So they've got us on the list,
Yes.
and we don't have
So-
any idea where that is.
We're hopeful, well, when I talked to him 2 weeks ago, he said it'd be about 2 to 3 weeks, so we're hoping that maybe he can get in here next week, so. I was hoping it'd be this week, but it wasn't, so, but I will be calling him tomorrow.
And there was some comment about, I think, maybe Roy mentioned it, we need to maybe talk with the schools, that occurred.
To talk to the schools? No.
Was there any concern from them? It seemed like the parking's not gonna change a whole lot one way or the other, it seems to me, really. She wanted just people to be able to park, like in front of my house, and just park, I guess, parallel.
Parallel, yes.
In essence.
So when you pull out, you can see it.
Yes, and that,
Parallel parking's gonna make it easier
yes,
to see through these dark windows. You have to really get out there if they're angled park.
it really is.
And I think that parallel was, and I thought that's what we had to
Right,
solve that issue already a year or two ago.
right. We
They
had-
went back and put those angled lines in there.
And there was I don't think it was intended, but there was a comment that maybe the staff wasn't being as safe as they could be in shepherding those kids across the street. So I drive that bus every single afternoon, and those people out there with that old cardboard stop sign, standing between them and whatever's coming, making sure those kids get across the street. So that staff, they do a really good job, but I do understand her concern about being able to see.
Just to get in and out of a driveway.
Yes, so hopefully we can
That's
get that
difficult
addressed.
with the traffic.
Thanks, sir.
The pavement you're talking about, they're basically gonna cover the line, so the line won't be there.
Yeah, they'll just put a coat of tar
Yeah.
over, it, so basically a white out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the answer that you're looking for.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we're not striping it, it'll just
At
be
all.
bare, yes.
I think
Which
that's
will
what
be
she
the
had requested.
standard
that.
parallel parking, so by default.
Okay, thank you.
Good
Chief
question, good
Jameson?
answers, yep.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. It seems like it's been forever since I see you. I missed one one meeting because of school, and, 2 months go by, so it's good to see all of you again. You have the report. There's a couple things that I'd like to point out on it. We had talked early on when we were entertaining moving to a new RMS system. I had talked to you about how our calls for service would go up. And I want to draw attention to that, the calls for service that were captured in the month of July, because we did go live with the E4 system. There's 323 calls for service, so that is quite a bit of an increase. So it is doing what we thought it would do. It's capturing the information that was lost before because the officers had to enter it in themselves. So now that the dispatcher is entering it, it's capturing that, so we'll get a better idea of what everybody is doing. Traffic stops were up, arrests were up, and I am excited to say that the RMS system, we did go live the 17th of July, and it is running just like it's supposed to. It's really streamlining processes because the officers are spending less time entering data on their computers because the system's doing it for them. We did go live with our body cameras, the Axon system. That is working out great. Both still have a couple things that we have to do. We're working with municipal court to get the ticket writer system working, so that'll go right into the system that municipal court uses. And then on the body cams as well, we'll be able to share all the videos, the digital media electronically to municipal court should we need that. The councilman mentioned it, school is next week. I'd like to take the opportunity to remind everybody that the school zones will be enforced starting next week again. So please help us, help the kids to stay safe. All right? And then I will answer any questions you might have.
Chief, I have some questions. Just my understanding that you and the city manager are working hard to improve our situation for the police department. I appreciate that. And I'm wondering, I think one question I had, we were going to upgrade all of the vehicles, including administrative vehicles, to be patrol ready. Is that accurate?
No, that is not, and I appreciate you asking that. I watched the meeting last week, or the last month.
Got a little
that I
lost
wasn't
in
here. Yeah, the administration vehicle, particularly the chief's truck, is not gonna be patrol-ready. There was never any plans for it to be patrol-ready. It does have a radio, does have radar, does have emergency lighting, but it was never designed or thought to be having computers and a cage and a transport. It's a four-wheel drive vehicle. So that vehicle's gonna be up off the ground, right? Now, to the councilman's question that he asked me early on, could it be? Of course it could. Eventually, down the road, if that's something that we need to do, we get hard pressed for vehicles, we could certainly do that. Would not be ideal, it would not be, similar to the operation, the vehicles that they have now because of the raised clearance. But all the other ones will. The vehicle, that was replaced, that is scheduled to go in. We've been waiting, the cage and everything that goes in that has been on back order. Because now's the time that a lot of, I guess, agencies are buying cars that are left over and they're upfitting them. So we had to get in line. It is scheduled the 26th, 27th, and 28th of this month for that to be installed. So after that is done, that will be completely outfitted as the other ones are.
And along that same line, it was noted that you're the only officer that lives in town. And due to that at times you could be depended on and would be depended on to be a backup in that circumstance. So, how does that play out as far as you see it, and specifically to the vehicle, since it wouldn't be outfitted as a patrol vehicle, a response vehicle in that truest sense of the word? How does that play out in your mind, do you think?
Well, let me answer that in reverse, all right? The number of people that are gonna be transported at a time on the calls that we're dealing with are not that high. Would we have the ability to transport someone in the car that, the officers are working? Keep in mind, we have 2 officers working at night. So you have 2 transport vehicles already out there, that will be able to address
Is
that.
that the 4 p.m. to 4 a.m.?
That's correct. Yeah. And that time period fluctuates a little bit too. I don't really want to get into the whole schedule,
Sure.
but it does fluctuate from time to time. But primarily, there's 2 vehicles on at night. So that would answer, or that would address that situation. And then you also have county and backup units and things like that that would be coming that also could transport, should we get into that type of a situation. The other piece about being available, I don't want to say this the wrong way or you to take it the wrong way. I'm always available. Most of the time it's going to be by phone. Thankfully, because of the 2 officers, we don't have situations where, when I first got here, I was pretty much out multiple times throughout the week. Almost every evening, sometimes there'd be a situation. We're addressing that. Should it get beyond that, the sergeant has a response, and then I too have a response. So we are available, but much like you and everybody else, we need to have our downtime as well, right? We need to be able to replenish, because I can't work all night and then work all day, Monday through Friday, right? So that's a little unreasonable to expect that, but we will address the issues as they come up, and we'll have adequate personnel to do so.
So that response falls to the county?
Yes, sir.
if need be.
Most parts, and that's how all your other agencies do it as well. It'll go to a neighboring agency.
And that would follow suit on the weekend as well?
On the weekend as
On the
well.
weekend, as far as
You talking-
availability for support for the officers, if that would fall to the county?
Yes, sir. That's pretty much normal. Like you have your strength that you're gonna put on the streets. Anything extra, anything more than that, you're gonna have to rely on the neighboring agencies until some of the additional backup officers who may be off can get there.
And that's regardless of what time of day of the week it is.
Yes.
That's there.
So, since we don't have any real officers that live in Weimar, are they taking these?
I'm a real
I'm
officer.
sorry. I said we don't have all, let me rephrase that.
But you're a chief
Most
officer.
of are they taking these city vehicles home with them every night?
No, ma'am, the only officer at this time, or the only sworn person that would be taking it other than myself, would be the sergeant, and that's due to response
So the
calls.
rest of them are all out at?
That's correct.
Okay.
Anything else?
Do you think there's anything that could be done to incentivize the officers to live here? Of course, that would be a budget item, obviously.
Yeah, there are,
Through you, that would come to the city manager, that would come to
Yeah.
us ultimately.
there are different programs that are out there, but that would be something that, I don't know that I want to say publicly at this time, maybe that would be something.
There's
we
so
could-
many factors that
Yes.
would go into that.
Yeah.
So there's not any one magic bullet that would make that happen, so. Well, yeah, wrong choice of words, but no magic item to make that happen, 'cause
So, the sheriff's office is on backup, and should we need additional officers?
Oh, and Schulenburg is as well.
Okay. I know you're here in town, are you here Monday through Friday at night?
No.
Just in case? No?
Not every night, no,
Okay.
I'm not. 2 to 3 nights a week I'm here. And it varies depending, like for instance, tonight normally I would go home on a Thursday.
That'd go through the weekend.
No, I work on Fridays, but when I do go back to Victoria, to see my wife and stuff, I'm always here by 6:30 the next morning, so, and available for a call.
But you're not physically here on Saturday and Sunday.
Sometimes I am, sometimes I'm
Sometimes.
not. I was here Saturday of last week. It just depends.
But the officers could contact you by phone,
Oh, absolutely.
or the sergeant.
Yes, sir. And we have a notification process that,
Y'all work that out.
oh, yes, sir. We have a policy that addresses it.
thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Ms. D? Thank you.
How are we doing, council, mayor? All right, as you can see on our sheets. The first one we have is our circulation activity graph. This is showing how many materials we have in the library. At this time, we are holding 17,234 books and other materials. We are, at this time, my staff is helping me weed out some books because we are running out of room, but we are still getting new books here all the time, so we are trying to make some more room for our new ones. Right now, at this time with the patrons, we have 1,690 patrons. Hopefully one day we'll have over the 1,700. And on loan right now is 172 books and materials being used at this time. The next thing is on our calendar for August. It's the American Artist Appreciation Month, so if you know any artists around, tell them how much you appreciate them. We'll be celebrating over there at the library with the appreciation of artists around. We had our free craft and snack one day. We had friendship bracelets and s'mores. We did have quite a few show up, and they were very excited to make some bracelets for their friends for the new school year and enjoy those messy s'mores. This week, Friday, we're having our National Book Lovers Day. We will have like some free books to help out some people that love to read and stuff, and give out some books that we've had there for a while, some kids' books, some adult books, some paperback books. So if you're looking for some books, just come on by the library and get you a free one. Let's see. Then Friends of the Library is doing a cyber security awareness discussion program on the 23rd of August at 10 a.m. at the library. Please RSVP if you can, so we can know how much room we need to have the chairs and everything set up. And also want to say that Hill Bank is going to sponsor that for us too, besides just the Friends of the Library. We have National Navigation Day on the 19th. We're going to have a Monday movie, The Disney Planes, rated PG at 4 p.m. We'll be giving out free popcorn and making paper airplanes. Big things that week. All right, on the monthly library visits for July, we had 819, so it has lowered down a little bit from last year. Figure everybody's getting their last-minute vacations in, so. And then for the audiobooks and ebooks online, we had 59 usage of books online, and then for the ebooks, 83. So they're still getting good use on the Libby, and we still continue all the time getting new people in and wanting to join Libby. So that's a good program for everybody. Any questions or anything come out? All right.
Thanks, Misty.
Thank y'all so much.
Thank you, Misty. That concludes our reports, Mayor.
Okay, we'll move to agenda item number 4, citizens' presentations and comments. In accordance with the Texas Attorney General's opinion, any public comment that is made on an item that is not on the posted final agenda will only be heard by the City Council. No formal action, discussion, deliberation, or comment will be made by City Council. I have one person that is asked to speak. Mr. Hinton, if you will step up to the podium and if you will introduce yourself, then the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for having me tonight and letting me speak. My name is Kurt Hinton. I'm with First United Methodist Church here in Weimar, Texas. I'm coming before y'all this evening to kind of talk to you all about what's happening within inside our walls and how that can potentially outreach and help those in need in the community and the growing needs and concerns as they evolve. About a year and a half ago, we kind of started working on opening our doors to a lot of other nonprofit organizations, including some that were seeking space to operate out of that either did not have it in their direct budget to afford their own building, or they couldn't find anything in time. We're up to at least 10 nonprofit organizations operating within our walls, and that doesn't just stop there. It also includes other nonprofits that we have kind of worked with and are continuing to work. One of my goals is to continue to build relationships, not only with nonprofits, but coming before you all as a city, even first responders, on how to evaluate to better meet the needs of those in the community. We have a lot to offer from AA has been within inside our walls for a long time. We have a nonprofit nurse by Methodist Healthcare Ministries that can assist with basic needs, including assisting with need co-pays. Someone can't afford their co-pay on their insurance to go see their primary care doctor. Our nonprofit nurse can assist with that. You need assistance with long-term medication assistance of like how to accomplish that, not necessarily like affording it for the person, but how to achieve that. Writing necessary letters. For instance, we had an individual who needs a service dog and did not have the required documentation. She was able to assist out with that, so the person could stay where they are with their animal for emotional support. We have under the Help Me Grow program, which is kind of a subset of the Stansel Foundation out of Schulenburg. For lack of better terms, they're essentially social workers. Their job is to help direct people in need to resources, whether it's inside our walls or not. It matters not. It's about meeting the needs of the community, and whether it's inside Weimar or Schulenburg, Columbus, or LaGrange, basically Fayette and Colorado County. Obviously, we've had parents as teachers for several years now. Forgive me, I don't remember the exact year amount. WIC has been within inside our walls for over 20 years. We actually have observed that WIC, this being a satellite of the Columbus office, has now seen more traffic than Columbus itself, more traffic than Eagle Lake. And part of that is our wanting to come to cooperate, share other organizations and resources, and make sure that things can be cross-referenced. If someone comes to, say, parents as teachers, and they may be able to address one thing but not another, then they know where to direct to help guide them in the right direction for assistance. We also are addressing mental health through both our on-site therapist, Lakeisha Moore, who was formerly in Schulenburg and now is residing inside of our church walls, to cooperations with FAYS out of Columbus. We have Senior Group Connections now here on first and third Tuesdays of the month, kind of filling in the gap of the other service that is already here to make sure it doesn't conflict, but continues to provide a space for seniors to go and get a good home-cooked meal and a sense of gathering and social. We have our own computer lab. We have 3 computers available for the public, as well as Wi-Fi and color printer. We have Gabriel's Project to help some crisis pregnancies. They're available on call pretty much all the time. We also have our own food pantry, which distributes food every 4th Thursday of the month from 9 till noon. We have consistently been delivered between 6,000 to 7,000 pounds of food on that day of delivery, and distributed to over 100 to 115 citizens on average of the Weimar area. Plus, with the standing policy that if anyone is hungry right now, though we do not have the storeroom size to have everything, that they come to us and we'll give them food right now. There's no reason anyone has to be hungry. There's no reason anyone has to be lonely or depressed or have to deal with anything alone. It's less about us as a church and more about making sure that people know that these resources are here, how to get them, and helping people. And I want to do everything that I can to help share that and connect.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your mission and your outreach to our citizens.
Thank you for having me.
Move to agenda item number 5, approval of the minutes of the July 11th regular council meeting.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. If there are no changes or additions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 6, report on financial statements. Mr. Mason?
Mayor, Council, we'll start off with the third quarter expenditure statements. If y'all turn to page 15, that'll be the summary page. So, with it being the third quarter, we expect to be at 75% income and revenues, and that's right where we're at, right at 75%. So we're right on target for the third quarter. Let's look at some of the other items. If you have a specific question, we can address that. Just call me, send me an email or something. Otherwise, in the council packet, pages 13 to 24, those are the regular items. On page 13, in the past it's been asked, what's the difference in interest since we switched banks? So I took a snapshot of the items in the second section there, the operating account, the money market accounts of 2022 to 2023, 16,000, and 22 and 24 is 66,000, so about a $50,000 difference. That question came up, so I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you,
We
Mr.
do have
Mayor.
some CDs coming up, one this month and 5 6 next month. So we'll be doing some checking interest rates for that. So I'll let you look through the report if you have any questions after that.
What were we using that skid steer for?
Pick up limbs.
Oh, to
We
pick up.
had the Kubota tractor for repairs,
Uh-huh.
and we were using that for picking up limbs.
Okay, so now we're done with all of that.
Skid steer, yeah.
So we got that mini excavator, we haven't got that yet.
The mini excavator? Yes.
Yeah.
We had that. Maybe you
Yeah,
could
it's
use
been
it.
in service for nearly a year.
Yeah, almost
A year?
I guess I haven't really seen it.
Yeah,
It's
no.
mini.
So,
Small.
Very
Yeah, there you go.
on page 18, we are in the process of
That's,
acquiring a trailer to load it on. We found that the trailers that we had we thought they were going to be okay, but they weren't adequate for hauling that piece of equipment around. So I think the guys are going to go pick that up within the next week. That's up in Belleville.
And that software support is part of what the phone system?
The phone system's a separate piece, but the software
Which one
support,
is it? Last page. Surveillance, that is for the SCADA software, which controls the water and electric.
really good? Okay. We'll move to agenda item number 7, approval of accounts payable and transfer of funds.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. If there's any additional discussion or changes, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
You have a question?
I do have a question.
Okay.
Not at this particular situation. I'm
Okay.
gonna ask a question about what I need to do. I've received several calls about payments being paid to our former city manager. And so I asked David to check in that to me. And the first question is whether or not we've made any payments in calendar year 2024, and there were none.
Did you see their?
I did, but we did make some payments in July, August, and September for $7,500 each. And I've had several calls asking, was that outside of the severance package that he was given? Do we know?
That was all agreed on in closed session,
Correct.
and I was not involved in the closed session.
Bo, you want to help with that answer?
I mean, if you got a payment, it would have been part of the settlement thing.
Yes.
It was negotiated with the city
paying somewhere above, so that could be reduced.
There's a contract.
Settlement agreement
Yeah.
between the city
And-
and, I assume you're talking about Mike Barrow.
Yes,
Okay.
and you could get that for me?
I'm sorry?
You could get that for me?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a copy. I don't recall that there's any confidentiality to it, but I have to look. You know, it may, if it does, I'll call you and say, hey, it has a confidentiality agreement. I need to
Well, I think
look at
some of that
whether-
question fell in that, you know, obviously, like me, I work for the school system, so I'm not paid as a city councilman, which I didn't really even realize we were paid, so it worked out either way. But, you know, if the former city manager was working at another state entity down the road, and he was being paid by the city there in August and September, for example, then I would think there would be a conflict if we paid him in a situation in August and September. I guess that's what I'm trying to
Sure, okay,
discern.
well, I can
Does that make
address that.
sense?
That would be sort of an apples and oranges to you, because anything that he would have been paid after termination or after whatever the agreement was for him to leave would be, that's not payroll, that's severance, that's money that the city paid to negotiate getting him to go away and, you know, to sort of wipe all the slate, everyone release everything, et cetera, so it would be classified differently, so it would be, for example, let's say, you go to Schulenburg City Hall, and they got some water there, they see the water, and you slip and fall on the water, and the city's like, oh my goodness, we'll give you $2,000 next month. They wouldn't be able to call you later and say, oh, we just found out you work for a school district, King's X, we don't have to pay you that $2,000, we negotiated with you. So the payment is classified differently than payroll, and specifically, what you're talking about is a prohibition it's a prohibition against you being paid for this job as an elected person because you're paid by another state entity.
Two state
Something-
entities.
Yeah,
paying
yeah, and so, but that.
double pay, basically.
Right, but that has to do with Texas government code as to elected officials.
Right.
And so in theory, I don't think it would apply, but if it were to apply anywhere, I assume you're bringing me up that someone has dug around Mike working for someone else. So let's just, okay, Mike's working for
Let's
some
cut to
public
the chase.
entity. I don't know, right, yeah. I mean, number one, I guess the question would be, is it an elected position versus appointed or something like that? And, you know, I still don't think it would apply, but if it applied in any way, it would apply to the new entity paying him and not to us paying him. Because what we agreed to is more just, it's a contract. In its essence, any settlement agreement or severance agreement, it's just a contract. It says, you do this and we'll do that. In the city's case here, Mike did, whatever, or release this, and the consideration for his agreement to do that was money. And so it wasn't really, it wasn't payroll. I'm more than happy, I assume we paid him because you're asking this question. I don't remember what we paid him, and I don't
David
know.
would acknowledge that, we paid him, correct?
Yeah, we did.
We did.
And like I said, I'm happy to look and see if we can, provide a copy of the settlement agreement. I just don't remember if it was.
I appreciate that, because, you know, I don't know what we did. Wasn't present at that time. But I just want to make sure that we don't find ourselves in any kind of legal situation.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm confident that there's no legal exposure from the process we've done.
Okay.
But if anyone is concerned, they should feel free to call wherever he's working now and ask them if, was it appropriate for them to hire him or pay him. That's not our problem. We solved our problem by signing the severance agreement.
I just want to make sure we did.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Thank you.
Good, man, y'all earned your $500.
I I do.
All opposed? Motion carries. Move to agenda item number 8, discussion and action on approval for the city manager to execute an agreement with Strand Associates for the lead and copper rule revision compliance.
Mayor, council, this is the new rule that TCEQ came out with, and they gave a deadline. It's, give a deadline of October 16th of this year to basically submit a new report of the total inventory of all the water service lines, both city-owned or utility-owned, as well as customer-owned. So that deadline's quickly approaching. We met with several companies and got estimates on what that would cost to have that contracted out, and that ranged anywhere from $25,000 to $50,000 for them to come in and basically assess all of our lines and then put it in a report so that it could be reportable to TCEQ, and then that would actually establish an inventory that we would maintain, and then every new system that goes in after that is kept within that inventory. With that said, we also reached out to our engineering company that we use, Strand & Associates, and they will do it as well, and they'll charge us basically by the hour, and as an estimate, they said to do the full thing, it would likely run somewhere between $25,000 to $28,000. So staff's recommending that we move forward with hiring Strand & Associates to conduct our inventory assessment.
So the
Second.
This was a question.
I was asking a question, because we do have a diagram of what's there right now, right?
We have a diagram of the lines, but it doesn't tell us whether or not they're copper or lead or PVC, whatever material the line is.
Okay, so these folks are gonna make that determination by some,
Yes, yeah,
You
so
said this is mandatory, right?
it's mandatory.
Is there a way of getting like a do not exceed limit where you don't, they estimate it and they come in, say, the 50, you just never know?
We could, I mean, we could set the $28,000 as a up to and including $28,000.
Just to protect ourselves, I think it'd probably be a good idea at least,
Yeah.
if possible.
if they would be okay with that.
Oh, they would be fine, yeah. So, in fact, I wouldn't recommend exceeding the $28,000. So, yes, I would set it up to $28,000.
Well, I would move we would approve the city manager to execute an agreement with Strand & Associates for the lead and copper rule revision compliance not exceeding $28,000.
Now I'll second it.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. It is open for additional discussion. Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 9. Now, I'm going to read this full, and then you can take them one by one.
Okay.
Okay, if you're all right with that. Okay, discussion and action on approval of ordinance amending the Weimar Code of Ordinances, Chapters 1, 3, and 5, Chapter 1, Article 1.01, Code of Ordinances 1.01.004, Definitions and Rules of Construction, 1.01.008, Supplementation of Code, Division 7, Fire Marshal, 1.05.121, Appointment 1.05.122, Duties 1.05.123, Compensation 1.05.124, Annual Report 1.05.125, Assistant Fire Marshal Division 8 Code Enforcement Official 1.05.114, Appointment Termination, Division 9 City Health Authority 1.05.161, Appointment Term, Article 106 Departments Division 2 Police Department, .106.032, Creation of Department and Jurisdiction, Chapter 3, Article 3.03 Code of Officials, 3.03.001, Building Official, Chapter 5, Article 5.02, Fire Marshal, 5.02.001, Office Created. With that being said, it's now in your hands.
Thank you, Mayor. So to give you backstory on this, so when I first got here, we dissolved the fire marshal position, and then we were in discussions as to how we would handle that and move forward. During that time, I started looking into it, and it seemed like every avenue that I turned to was a dead end. So oftentimes, when situations like this arise, you can rely on the county to provide a county fire marshal. However, Colorado County does not have a county fire marshal. So turning to the state, which is the only other option, or viable option, is really not a viable option because it's just not really what they're for. They're not meant for those everyday fire marshal needs per se. You can also look for neighboring cities to get into some type of interlocal agreement or whatever, but that really wasn't a viable option. So when the need arose, I hired a building services and inspection company who conducted the fire inspections that we needed during that time. Well, since that, we had about 4 fire inspections, I think, since that time that we've had to complete. So we contracted with them to come in and make those inspections. And with that, then I asked them to go ahead and look at our ordinances. It started with really the fire marshal ordinance. It's like, we need to update this ordinance to, we just need to update it. So I asked them to look at chapters 1, 3, and 5, which basically pertain to building services, fire prevention, and fire marshal positions. So with that, they looked over that, sent back these recommendations, and that's what the recommendations are. So we'll just kind of go through each one.
Yes, please.
Okay. So basically, the first page, page 25, that's just more or less updating some definitions as it relates to the chief of police, city manager, and city secretary. The next page on 26, that's just basically having directed by the city manager, their designee, rather than the city council. The changes that they recommended, those recommendations are based on what you would typically see at other cities and what's in their language and their ordinances. So that's where this alignment comes from. The other main language update that we're going to see is consistent as basically when you looked at our building official or building services language, then you looked at the fire marshal, fire inspection language aside, that they really didn't line up or align, and they really should, because those functions tend to go hand in hand or side by side. So you should really see a lot of mirrored language in that. So that's what we're going to see here, is basically just updating those to reflect that language. So you see the appointment of the fire marshal. You see that it says the city fire marshal shall be selected by the city manager, answerable to the city manager, and may be terminated by the city manager with or without cause. The city manager may engage consultant services as they deem necessary for fire inspections, plan review, and other related responsibilities, and may authorize such contracts with consultants for such services as the work may require. So looking at the fire marshal, that primarily was selected by city council every 2 years. And at the time that was put in place, it made sense because that served the need very well for that time. But given where we are today, that really needs to be report to the city manager, and you don't need to reappoint that every 2 years. It's not necessary. So if you have that established business, building services or organization, they can perform that function, and you don't need to reappoint a person. This new language actually makes it a little cleaner so that we have the option of actually appointing an individual, or we can actually hire an outside company to perform those same services. So that's what the language that we're going to see through the majority of these. And then as well, it addresses the compensation basically as it is set by city ordinance. So, any questions on that one, the appointment of fire marshal?
Who's going to define work that, as it may require?
Well, that's pretty common as far as what those responsibilities are, and that's outlined by the International Building Codes, electrical, fire codes, so that outlines what those tasks are.
So to meet whatever the code expectation is, then the work would be done to pass inspection.
Right, which is basically defined by ordinance, adopting those building codes, fire codes.
And you would be the sole person to determine whether you had an individual or a entity perform that.
Right, it gives you the option, and sometimes it's,
So we would be cut out of that decision completely.
yeah, if you look at the rest of the department directors, it aligns with what those are as well.
It looks like that occurs in all of these.
Right, and that's what the updates are, so.
The council would not be involved in any of those decisions. It would be a city manager decision.
Is that more like going to a city manager form of government?
Well, that's what we
I know
are.
that. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, we are
It
that.
aligns with
With
that,
that.
yes, ma'am. And basically, a fire marshal or a building official, those are department directors, and generally, those report to the city manager. Usually, a fire marshal actually reports to the fire chief, which is a department director, like a police chief, and those report to the city manager. That's what you typically see.
Still be reporting to the city manager, but approved by council?
It's directly at will of the city manager.
So, let's say we went to that consultative format as opposed to the city manager. Then, do you ultimately, is that entity gonna hire that fire marshal? Or are you gonna hire that?
The entity will be the fire marshal.
The entity would be
The entity will be the fire marshal. They will represent those services.
And
So basically,
how do
think
you
of it
put a
in
thumb on
terms,
entity, how's an entity become a person? That person is gonna be doing the job.
well, it would be different people. So
Well, per
basically,
position.
put it in terms of the IT company. So we hired an IT company. We're not hiring a single IT person. We're hiring a team of people to perform those services. Well, that's essentially what you would be doing with building services or whatever. So you may have a single person that comes and do a lot, but you may have a different, or the building inspections, but you may have a different person come in and do electrical inspection or fire inspection or whatever.
Those
And
guys
that's
would
the
be under-
advantages of having the entity, you know, especially in smaller cities, you increase your tool capacity by this as opposed to a single person who's, you know, there's just no way a single person can be an expert in all those areas.
With the electrical person and the plumbing person, they would report to the building official.
Right,
All of the.
right,
Because
yeah.
they will have their certifications, but this person should be all knowledgeable
If we have
or
a,
entity,
yeah,
but again,
if we had a larger city that had a built-out department like that, that's the structure you would see. And hiring a third-party service, we have the same structure, but it's outsourced. It's a third party that provides those services.
well, and you were talking about uniformity of wording in these codes. You know, in some places, for example, it says here for the fire marshal, the fire marshal, a person. And some of the other entities, like, I think the building official, that was seems like the language would need to be more consistent, or no?
I think, I don't think that, it sounds like you typically would understand fire marshal to be a person, but you, as we have the code, you could hire an entity that's qualified to act as the fire marshal. It wouldn't necessarily have to be a specific individual that they say, this is the name of the person who's going to do the inspection. It does seem to be that more flexibility, because you're hiring a qualified licensed company that holds itself out as having whatever the certification is necessary to do fire inspections. I don't know, I think it does. So that I understand, that yes, it says, because it says the office of fire marshal, and so we typically, when we read it, we think that's a person, but as you read it, or contextually or legally, it can be an entity.
Well, if it said the Office of Fire Marshal, we would be more open, that's true, we'd be more in that entity realm, but it says the city fire marshal. That's pretty specific.
Well,
Be a effective entity, whenever you say, it used to be fire inspection is our fire marshal. And then it would be anybody in that entity that's properly licensed would be delegated the ability to do inspections on behalf of the city.
yeah, and if you look forward in Article 5.02, it actually has the language, the Office of the Fire Marshal is
Right.
created. So,
And also, just getting back to the questions about direct and non-direct, it's kind of like we've been through at various times that I'm aware of, like with people, council asking about controlling the police chief, and it's come up before, and what I've always told the council, and I know Roy's heard it, Becky's heard it, is if you guys don't like what the city manager is doing, ultimately, then yes, then it gets on the agenda, or it gets in executive session, or you go in his office and you say, I don't like what you're doing, because at the end of the day, we're city manager government, but if the council doesn't like the city manager, they just have a meeting and boom, that's fixed. I know Richard probably don't.
hey, that's part of it.
No, and
That's part of the game.
I can speak from personal experience, because I've been a fire marshal, and I've not had formal training, and there's things that I may or may not have signed off on that I was probably not fully qualified to do.
And I guess if we move to this entity format, even though it doesn't say that here under appointment, it says it later, the Office of Fire Marshal, then we're getting a commitment from the city manager that this entity, regardless of the role, has all of those certifications up and down the food chain. So if you're dealing with the building official, then that person, he or she, is fully knowledgeable and capable to address any of those areas, plumbing, let's say. But your plumbing inspector is specifically certified to do those things, and they're guaranteeing that that person has those certifications and is acting on the behalf of the citizens of Lyman.
Correct.
And you're guaranteeing that.
Yes. That would be part of an
If we
agreement.
approve that,
Yeah.
that's the recommendation, and we're accepting that as stepping out of that format as a council and expecting the entity to take care of it through the city manager.
Yes.
So then is removing this position and it's a whole from the city, is that saving taxpayers money, or is it actually gonna cost them more paying this company to do it?
Well, it's not, I mean, it's, and we're gonna get into that to the next item more, but basically, the current funding right now, is actually not enough to fund what is all within that row. So, because you're actually talking about animal services, you're talking about, code enforcement, which is a whole separate issue than what building inspections and fire marshal. So it's actually, there was 4 pieces there originally. So it's, you know, when you look at that, it's actually not near enough funding to fund all those services properly. So, can I put a hold on that question till the next item?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
So, in
part-
that hold, I guess ultimately what we're doing is we're aligning all of these codes so that we could approve you contracting with Safe Built to provide all those services.
Right.
So the council is turning over all of their authority, whether it was mayor appointing every 2 years or whatever, that would be taken care of by this company and you.
Yes.
So this safe, oh, okay, so this is actually, when we hire this, if we hire this person, this company, they're gonna be here 7 days, like a code enforcer to go and do our inspections, or look at the grass height, chase that dog and cat down?
No, and I'd really, if y'all wouldn't mind, I'd really like to get into that on the next item.
Okay, that's
So
fine. I
this
just-
item is just about the ordinance itself and not about who we hire or how we handle that.
Okay.
So
And I
that's
understand
a
that
whole
position.
nother separate issue.
I understand that position, but the problem in doing that, which we have to do it because they're separate items, is that you're giving approval to change all these codes before you've agreed that you want those people to handle all of it.
That they actually
To me, that's
understand
problematic.
Well, no, I think you're missing, the ordinances allow it to hire any, it could be any company.
It could.
doesn't have to be this
But
company.
it is specific on this agenda for that company, which is fine, it could be any company. My concern is that we're changing these codes so that we can do that
Well,
before we've even agreed that outsourcing, because that's what we're talking about, we're outsourcing all of this activity, and is that really the right thing to do? Maybe it is. You know, it's almost a cart and horse thing. As I read through all that stuff, I said, oh my goodness, we're changing codes, but we haven't agreed that that's the way we want to go.
well,
The code is just adding right to that you could hire a person here or an entity.
yes,
It's not
it's
saying
given us
where.
the option,
It's
yes.
basically removing
Right.
us from any say-so.
But
We wouldn't be able to say that, yeah.
It's now just the manager
But the
in
council
whole.
is out of the picture.
Which is what management forms of government does. That's,
And I agree with
so,
that.
I mean, you're trusting me to make these decisions, and you're trusting me based on my recommendations, and that's what I'm attempting to do. And the big issue that we really faced here is being in a small city and struggling to get people to apply, and so we're a population of under $5,000, 5,000 population. With that, we're not required by law to provide any of these services. So that's first thing. But we chose to provide them. And now that we provided them, now we need to provide them with proper credentialing.
Correct.
And we're lacking that. And with that, that actually comes more money, and we're not addressing it that. So we're not funding these positions as they should be funded. So it's, you know, it's hard to provide all of the necessary services that need to be with the proper credentialing, with the funding that we had. And we're not keeping up with what the codes and stuff, the updates that they actually provide. And, you know, we're just struggling completely across the entire organization in the building services and fire stuff, and we've got to fix that, you know. And this is what it's gonna take to fix it after my assessment. This is what I see and realize that it's a systematic, need of repair across all the building services and inspections.
So we have a new house bill, who's inspecting the plumbing?
Well, again, getting into the next item, I eliminated our current code official position. So right now,
So
we
he
have
was.
nothing. So,
Okay,
yes, he was doing all of
Okay.
that, yes.
Seems they're having trouble agreeing to this without enough information. And I know it may be the next agenda item, but
Could we table this and come back to it after we've dealt with item 10?
I'll just say this, the, item 9 isn't mandating outsourcing. In other words, the only thing it's doing is it's changing who selects the officials. It's moving it from council that meets once a month to, the city manager, Richard. So it's not, in other words, you could pass this and you could say, we don't want a company, we want you to go hire someone. Or someone who's super qualified could come and say, I want to move to Weimar and do this. And even with these changes, we could hire. So no, this doesn't mandate hiring a business, it doesn't mandate hiring anyone. It really is just changing the selection procedure to give it to Richard as the city manager, or to give the city manager, who is Richard, that ability and authority to make the hires. And he is obviously, he is subject to city council saying, we don't like what you're doing. So, you know, it kind of makes sense to me, not only because the city manager, but just because, and we've run into this, there's just times when city council doesn't meet enough to be in the weeds of hiring a building inspector or something like that.
But along that same kind of reasoning, it brings, I guess, question to my mind, kind of along the line of what Roy was suggesting. You know, I need a permit to put a roof on somebody's house. You know, let's say it is an entity. You know, how's that entity gonna get me a permit to the contractor to do that?
I think we issue permits without, like for a roof, I don't know if it would be a thing. But, I mean, ultimately, I think what it would come down to is, would you rather have a permit and an inspection from someone that can come out right away and they may not know what the codes are, versus scheduling it a few days later for someone that knows the codes to come out and look at it? Because not to denigrate anybody that's been a building code official, but to suggest that one person could know all of the international residential code, the international fire code, the international plumbing code is, you know, that's asking a lot of one person. And so, as Richard pointed out, I think if the city's going to elect to have these code inspections, we ought to do it right. Because what you don't want is something tragic to happen because of some construction deficiency that would have been picked up by a qualified code inspection.
And I think
And we've not, you know, knock on wood, to my knowledge, that hasn't happened, but it obviously it does happen. I mean, I see them.
all you have to do is watch the news to know that that's true. So I understand, but that's exactly what you're expecting of the building official entity, is that they are knowledgeable of all of those things. And if that he or she is certifying that all of those people below him or her are capable of making those things. But I think about you're building a house, you need to pour a slab. You know, you are burning daylight and money with that concrete truck tumbling that concrete, and if you can't get it poured, that's a problem, isn't it? So we're gonna be able to address that with.
Well,
Because
actually,
it sounds like we're gonna be hiring an entity to me. So are we gonna be able to address those needs for our residents?
yes, more efficiently than we currently are, with better quality and more confidence. Because they will help us review our current processes, they will help us establish quality processes. Am I gonna say, can they have same-day inspections? No, probably not, nor should they, because some of the problems is the fast-track stuff. And that's the stuff we need to slow the brakes down and take more time to evaluate a lot of these permits and processes and stuff, because I hear the complaints all the time, how did this building get put here? Well, because we have a weak
I
system.
certainly understand that.
So this new process will help us remedy that stuff through proper plan reviews and permitting processes, and that's what the new company is gonna help us establish. There will be an online system, so it would actually make it more smoother and efficient and effective. So that's what we're gonna gain from the new company, is all of those improvements. We're not gonna get a new restaurant built now that that doesn't have a concrete drive through it, and you gotta tread through wet gravel to get to the, stuff like that would be caught and prevented, and that's what we're hoping to gain with the new company, that will actually stick to those standards and hold contractors to those standards.
So, if I understand what Bo's saying, is even if we give up that control as council, we still have that ability to come in council meetings and say, we don't like this company, we want you to hire a code officer.
Absolutely.
Where we would hope that we have that
We
we
hope
have the
that we have
relationship.
I
confidence
hope you
with
have it
Richard.
right now.
Yeah.
If we don't, then I failed my job.
Yeah, correct.
You could pass this ordinance, and next month you could come back and say, I want to change the ordinance again.
Absolutely.
And I don't even, we're just making it more one way or another, whether that's a person here or a company. Right now, it's just you have to have a person here, correct? So
Right, correct.
Yeah, and well, and we're changing the appointment process to make it more efficient. In other words, instead of it being, that's really the ordinance is, the primary thrust is to move the hiring of whoever or whatever it is to the city manager as opposed to city council. Which, I mean, it makes sense to me. I mean, it's not a particularly legal issue, but, you know, one less agenda item every.
So then on something like this, say an owner here in town owns half an acre and they want to do a replat or something like that, that gives you the power to say yay or nay, is that right?
It would come through the permitting process.
Okay, it'd still do the
So,
regular-
Yes, and it just depends on what the circumstances are, so.
Right.
Planning would still go through P and Z.
Correct.
Yeah, no, this would not be planning, this would just be.
Got you, okay. Just making sure when I saw like the ordinance side of it, like is there anything like on that side of the
Building
ordinances?
permits and building
Okay.
inspections.
How about, I'm trying to get comfortable with this. I understand basically what you're asking for is that we actually have a city manager form of government in practice, is the gist of it.
Well, that's not what
You can-
drove this, but it aligns with it.
It's okay for you to say yes.
Well, I would think the answer to that is yes. Is what we're trying to do, is where we're moving. And I'm still trying to get comfortable in my mind
Yes.
with, I feel so much better about that answer. You know, the 80-year-old woman whose air conditioner goes out on the weekend, I don't want her to have to sit there like they do sometimes in Houston and die because we can't get some kind of permit to do something about her air conditioner. And they're out of town.
I don't think they would,
That would, yeah.
that wouldn't happen.
And I'll let the gentleman speak to more of that on the next section.
I would certainly, I wouldn't think that the type of people we work
No,
with, that would happen.
If there was emergency, you know,
Don't answer that yet.
just junk it.
Yeah,
No,
it's,
no.
yeah, we're not gonna get caught up in emergency situations. That stuff happens all the time. People make the repairs and then they come and deal with it the following week. And
And
that
they're not-
stuff gets resolved.
And they're not gonna be fined for that.
No, they're not. We would have that circumstance right now, even if we had appointed fire marshals and not a company. We'd be faced with the same circumstances.
Kind of what I'm hearing, maybe in the culture that we've had here is a daily service. It may be moving to a every other day service.
Well, it would become a 24-hour notice, but it's
Correct.
very very common to
That's
see
the change in
actually
the culture.
72 hours, which it needs to be that because we don't need to rush through this stuff just for the sake of that contractor so that they can get in and get this stuff done.
Non-emergency.
Non-emergency,
I
yes.
think that's
There
what
has to
he's
be
questioning is
a
about.
caveat for that situation.
Non-emergency.
That you can, deal with an emergency and address the needs of a citizen without whoever the contractor is.
And there is.
Being fined for having done that.
And there is.
There was a smile, so there's an answer. In time, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think this is probably getting more into the next agenda item, but I struggle with, you have a full-time code enforcement, probably driving around town throughout the day, seeing different things, versus going into an entity that isn't here every day. I'm not saying that's not the right route to go, I haven't heard a presentation on it yet, but maybe some of this should be an entity and some of this should be looked at. We don't know that yet, but, and I don't know, the compensation for the fire marshal, I guess I'm a little, I'd like to know the numbers, pretty inexpensive right now, but you said it lacks the proper funding, so I'd kind of like to see what, before we scratch out that ordinance.
Well, so there's multiple points there. So regarding, code enforcement, it would be scheduled to where they come in here once a week and they spend 8 hours and they do their thing. And then when they come back the following week, they follow up on anything they addressed in that previous week. So they have a regular schedule that they come through. But that doesn't keep a citizen from turning in a complaint or whatever, and that gets forwarded to the fire marshal. Even the previous code enforcement, he wasn't spending 8 hours a day, 5 days a week doing code enforcement stuff. So it's, time-wise, it's, you're not gonna see a big difference. So, it's, the system would be established that no, they're not gonna be here 5 days a week every day, 8 hours a day. So, but they would be here through a regular scheduled. Weekly, yeah, once a week. And if other circumstances arise, we can certainly increase that. But just starting off, we're starting with a once a week process, or once a week schedule.
Okay, so like the code let's just do code enforcement, because there's lots of that right now. So they're gonna ride around and look at where the grass is and write down that, and junk cars or
Yes.
things parked too close on the corner where you can't see around them or through them. So they're gonna go do all that. There's a lot of streets in this town.
Yes,
but I
and
just
that
don't-
will be their sole purpose.
On tall grass, the change would let him, you could have multiple, maybe utility may not like to hear this, but he could deputize utility to be code enforcement to the extent of stuff that's obvious to.
Well, I'm
lay
just saying, we
people,
used to,
such as tall
code
grass
enforcement
or,
did all that,
um,
dogs and cats
or,
and rats and everything
working
else.
on your car in the street, or, 100 cars parked in your yard,
Right.
that kind of stuff. I don't, and I'm maybe putting words, but I don't think Richard is anticipating that we're gonna pay someone to come look at grass. Like, that, we can do that, that's a yardstick, right? We can deputize you, maybe.
I got several of them.
That is one issue of many issues through code enforcement that we have to address. So, and that's actually one of the minor issues that we
Right.
have. So, and we have to adopt several ordinances that's actually gonna give us more, teeth to deal with a lot of the issues that are more critical.
Okay.
So, but there's, yeah.
And it's just because I got this late yesterday, so it's just trying to digest.
I
all
get
this.
it, I
It's-
get it, yeah.
it's-
That is part of the problem, trying
Yes.
to read all this stuff, understand what you're asking of us, truly understand, see if the language is aligned throughout, and that we're expecting the same thing in all of those different offices. And, I got a copy yesterday, I think, but, our wonderful secretary, which I appreciate so much, said, well, you have a new packet there because there were some things that were not, well, I couldn't study over that. And then we're asked to make these decisions tonight and trying to internalize, process, and understand what all of this stuff
Yeah,
is.
this is a dollar amount.
It's a pretty big expectation, I think.
Yep.
In that amount of time. It kind of sounds like some of the things that are going on with Congress of the United States. We give you a 1,000-page bill, and yesterday, when you need to vote on it today.
Well, I understand and appreciate how it could look that way. That wasn't the intent, and it's really, this was supposed to be just a very simple update.
Right.
So it looks a lot more complex than what it really is, so, but I understand y'all's concern and resistance to it, but.
Is there any need to take action on this need in the first instance? I know you'd like it.
Well, because we just need to get agreement going so that we can start developing the permitting process, because we get requests all the time and stuff, and it's just, it keeps us in limbo longer.
And per that, how are we permitting right now then? Or how are we code enforcing right now, since we don't have a code enforcement person because no longer with us?
Well, and that's it, so we're in a gray area, and we're trying to work through that, and that's why we need to get this established. And
I mean, I think they could probably approve you temporarily having the authority to hire, you know, whatever this, item 10, they could approve that for 60 days, and that would give everybody, I know that's not perfect, I know you're not wanting to hear that, but I understand people that, you know, if they just got this, they want it digested, they might want to talk to the constituents, and I would think they could do that. They could temporarily authorize you to hire someone for 60 days, which would then give council time to review this and deliberate upon it themselves and come back. Rather than people feeling like it was, again, I don't think it's crammed down the throat, but people feeling like it was rushed.
Well, and that was not the intent.
No, that's,
I don't feel that from anybody.
Matter of
Just-
fact,
yeah.
on my very first page of questions I had is, do we have our new technology system in place and is it working? Because I was beginning the question, I'm thinking maybe it wasn't working.
Oh, well, it is, it's just,
He's
it's,
just not getting it quick enough.
when you try to transition stuff
That's true.
in the midst of a working system, and you don't want to try to shut that down, it makes it more challenging, whether it's an IT system or an inspection company system, because we certainly could have come in here and said, we're suspending all permits for the next 30 days or 60 days until we close this out and install a new system. We could certainly do that, but, you know, I'm not sure that would have been the right choice. It would have been a lot easier, but it really wouldn't have served our needs the best, just like an IT company. We could have come in here and shut everything down, taken out the old system, and then brought in the new system, and it'd been a lot easier, but it might not have been the best.
Probably don't win many fans like
No,
that way.
yeah.
And
So,
where
and
you
that's
are
what
with
we're
this. You're
trying to
not
do
winning one way
here.
or the other, because you don't have, I feel they don't have enough information.
Right, and I see that, and I apologize for that. I felt that there was, but the thing, we're trying to keep the contractors and customers going without interruption, and we're trying to do that in a very gray area, and it's, you know, so.
Well, I think the intent is, it's well intended. I just want to I think everybody wants to feel good about what we're agreeing to do.
Well, you know, like I mentioned before, you know, the scope of what a fire marshal does, you know, here to date, what we've had has probably been grossly inadequate. I don't remember anything about the city health authority ever having anything done that affected the city that I'm aware of. So, you know, what are we missing, or what is out there that we could be on the hook for that we know nothing about? You know, I don't.
I'm okay with tabling this. If y'all want to authorize me to contract out through this period here, if that's the direction that y'all would like to go, I'm certainly fine with that.
And what would that look like?
Well, I could bring up the gentleman representing Safe Built and let him speak more to a lot of the unanswered questions and what they can provide. And I would actually use their company to get us through that temporary period or whatever, so,
Have we
think
used
that would be
Safe
very
Built
helpful.
before for anything?
for fire inspections.
They did the ones that you were
Yes,
talking
that
about?
I was
Yeah.
talking
Just
about,
recently,
yes.
yeah.
So we have some experience.
Yes, and actually, my previous employer, they use them as well, so,
To do these things?
yes, yeah. So, Ian, would you like to come up and?
Introduce yourself, sir.
Ian, we're so happy you're here.
Oh, thank you. My ears have been burning.
I'm sure they have.
I don't know how many times I've been called entity, but
Close to Ian, yeah.
And that's so much better than what it could be.
it could be. You're right. I've been called worse.
Wait
My
till
name
you
is
finish your speech.
my name is Ian Knox. I represent Safe Built. We are a national company that provides services that you've seen written throughout this ordinance update for cities across the nation, of course. Our structures that were broken into states, and so we have our state of Texas team, which is a large state, so we have 3 sections, which is north, central, and south. I am located in the south office, which is in Midtown of Houston. I actually live in Sugar Land. I think we represent 2 other cities close by, semi-close by, Lockhart and Belleville. So we have people in the area in the first place. Joe Murray, our fire marshal, is the one who I think has been doing the inspections for fire. And we've got a plethora, I had to throw that word in there, of employees across the state. When we are short on some, we travel across the state to take care of the customers. So, I mean, that's kind of just a spiel on who we are. I could give you more details, but sometimes the easiest way to approach is questions. To answer your question about emergencies, sorry, I've got cotton mouth today. Emergencies, we do offer a service called on-demand inspections. And it happens a lot when emergencies happen, we have essentially using technology with the contractor to call in, do the inspection virtually using cameras. That's how we've gone through so many of the recent emergencies and gotten permits out the door quicker. We do next day inspections. There's a cutoff, I think, of 3 or 4 p.m. when those need to come in. The request can be for morning or afternoon, and we get our inspector out. So, any other questions? We do plan review, which we do constantly. We've got probably some of the best plan reviewers in the state working for us, and building officials.
A couple questions. What is the cost, and is there a contract with it?
So yes, the contract, so the good thing about the contract is that it's actually, it's based on project value. Oh, thank you so much.
Weimer water is great for cotton.
Well, you could get the sulfur well, so I don't know.
Sulfur's tasty. All right,
It can be.
Yeah, it can be, it just depends. Not in eggs, though, we don't look for that. So, for example, I'll kind of go through a few of these for you. The commercial plan reviews are based on project evaluation. It's split into degrees of money. So if something's $1 million and it's a huge project, then obviously it's going to cost more for the plan review. And it is tied to a contract. All of our services are based on review, inspection, et cetera. I don't believe, and Richard can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe any of this is like a subscription service. This is all based on what we do at the time. So you're not paying a monthly amount and saying, hey, we're not using Safe Built, so we're wasting money. We're here when you need us, is how it functions. The way the contract is currently laid out, it's commercial and residential plan review. It is inspections, that's building inspections, plumbing, all of those. We do, like you were mentioning, all of our employees are certified to handle any of this, including building officials, certified building officials, floodplain, et cetera. Fire marshal services, as you are already using, fire inspections, health department, I think that was a recent addition to this. I was talking with Brad Bond, our salesman, before the meeting. We do health inspections as well, code enforcement. The entire building department, essentially, is what we assist with.
And part of that would be that one of the first things we would do is go in and review our fee schedule, because the plan would be that all of these fees are actually passed to the builder and the customer, that they would pay for this 100%. But to the question, is there a cost savings? Well, not necessarily just yet, because we have to, figure out the other pieces of that and what's code enforcement gonna cost, and then how do we build a violator with all that? So there's a lot of stuff to work out, but we have to get into it. That sounds like Congress. We have to get into it before we can figure what those actual costs are, you know? So we're keeping the current funds in that fund there until we get transferred over, and then stuff starts settling down and we truly figure out where this is and what's this costing. But the majority of the building inspections, plumbing inspections, all that's the customer's gonna pay through that, and that's not gonna be on the city at all, and they would just basically pay them. And that's common practice around, you look at the city's ordinances and stuff, and the cost of those permits is what it costs to hire that third-party service out, so.
And something else that we've worked with other cities on, updating fee schedules to give a percentage back to the city as well. And that ultimately lies on you guys to decide how much do you want to charge the contractors, the homeowners for permits. But we've seen 15% of permit fee going to the city is pretty average. That's just something I point out we've done here several times before, so.
So if someone needs a new roof and they pull a permit, y'all come out and inspect that,
Yes.
and what does that fee look like?
Well, let's see. I've got an entire document here. Did they get a copy of this document by chance?
No.
No.
So inspections, my highlighting is last minute. Forgive me 1 second. So we have fire code inspections, and those are all based on valuation. That's an example. Anything between $1 and $62.50 is $285 per stop. $62.51 to $250,000 is $345 a stop. So it's all based on inspection, on stop, on plan review. Again, the only one that's really valuation based is the commercial, because they can get, I mean, some of these can take 9 hours to review. Let's see. So an example of a residential plan review is based on flat fees, like I was mentioning, not like commercial. That is $175 per plan review. And for other more minor reviews, which Richard was right, or whoever said it, we don't really do roof reviews. Those are over-the-counter permits, unless you want us to, but we'll just check it off, so I wouldn't recommend that. That's a waste of money. Minor projects, additions, swimming pools, driveways that you need us to look at are $125 a review. So that's all residential. It's not egregious pricing by any means. Trying to think what else. Health inspection.
Turnaround time on that?
So per the agreement, the contract, it's 5 days for residential reviews and 10 days for commercial. We typically get them out 2 to 3 days in advance because our system that we use, I implemented, it's kind of sneaky, but my reviewers see a number that's not true. So it gets out a couple days earlier than when it's actually due. But yeah, 5 and 10 days.
And that's pretty standard.
Yeah, it is.
So if it went in on Thursday,
Yeah.
then there
Business-
won't be any
business days.
action until the next week.
Yeah, business days. So if it came in on Thursday or Friday, it would be Wednesday of the next week at the very latest for residential.
And there's so much stuff that goes into the reviews, from what's actually being submitted, what are the circumstances in that neighborhood, the zoning, the ordinances. There's so much stuff that it has to take into account, and to rush that stuff means that stuff's gonna get
Yeah.
through. And that's the stuff you don't want rushed.
Correct. Yeah, you don't want to see a 2-day plan review return time, because then you're going to have resubmittals one after another instead of just an approved set of plans.
So what is the term of your basic contract?
I think that we haven't set that yet.
We hadn't even got into that yet,
No.
you know.
This is more kind of, and again, going back to what
could
you
it
were,
be?
What could it be?
could be infinite if you'd like for the uses.
Month to month?
Yeah, it could be, yeah. It absolutely could be.
Well, generally, you see a one-year contract, or you might lock a price in for a 5-year or whatever, but it's renewable after each year, but you still have a clause in there to where if either party's not upholding their end of the deal, then you can get out of it.
Yeah, terminate the
with a
contract.
30-day notice or whatever.
Correct.
So that's pretty common in what you see in these types of agreements.
And to answer a question you had earlier, and this is more about the ordinance change than anything, you could have an in-house fire marshal, and we fill the other services. We could do only inspections, if you prefer. It's not the whole package or nothing at all. The contract is written out that we provide these services separately, including planning, but you already have a planning department or commission, it sounds like.
It's kind of a checklist
Yeah,
of services.
That's à la
Correct.
carte, yeah.
yeah.
And then, per the mayor, if this was gonna move 60 days would be fine with you?
Yeah.
30
we could
days
help.
would be fine with you?
Some people have us on retainer, so it just
As
depends.
needed.
Exactly. So,
Yeah, we'll have to go back and renegotiate a temporary contract and stuff.
Yeah, I think I would like to see maybe some of y'all's fees for residential compared to what some of our current permit fees are, because the last thing I really want to do to our citizens is say all of a sudden your permit's now gone up 200%.
Yeah.
I get we've got to do something temporarily. Probably don't have much of a choice, but I think y'all have a benefit, but I think before we were to commit to that, I'd like to see those.
We want to make sure it's a benefit.
And don't get me wrong, I'm totally good with paying for qualified.
right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Versus maybe what we.
It's worth it.
Yeah, no, it's fair. You're asking very important questions. That's why I'm here, so.
I don't know what the current fees are, but I'd like to see, like Kurt said, I'd like to see what the residential permit, dollar-wise or whatever, to what we are now. I know we're very low, but I'd like to see
They're
what they do.
very low, yeah, too low.
Are we matched up with like the cities around us? Why does it make
No, and
potentially keep it?
that's what we've got to get into, that we hadn't even got into that yet. So
Gotcha.
we've kind of just done a real quick look, but that was, stuff we were gonna have to get into and analyze that just to figure out where we are, but.
So I think it'd be good to analyze that, because we don't want to go up on fees and keep people from coming here to build too at the same time, if the cities around us are actually cheaper.
Not necessarily.
Yeah,
So I think the question is what's being built.
yeah.
Again, it goes back to quality, so.
True.
And I think
Built
we
or-
want to
or
ensure
not
that
built.
what we're getting built is being built to quality.
Yeah.
Because we don't just want anything being thrown up.
True.
So,
Yep.
and that's what we're trying to ensure, is that we're getting quality stuff. Because we're trying to protect the safety of our residents and our businesses. And we're also trying to protect property values, both for the homeowner as well as the city, and our revenues. And it also goes into, one of our jobs is to, not just, to do what we can to work with that contractor or that homeowner, but we're also protecting from the future homeowner coming in and buying that home. What are they buying? We want to make sure they're buying quality, and that's our job.
Or
So,
the neighbor next to,
the neighbor, yes.
that's
So,
existing already.
Yeah.
And they're buying something that's serving the purpose for which it was designed.
Right.
Because this gets into not residential, but the commercial piece.
Yeah,
that we
and
have.
this is gonna help us get to all that point. That's what these efforts were for.
Well,
It's a
certainly these-
culture change, no disrespect.
Oh, I
yes,
get it.
this
I've worked in cities
Yes, sir.
for 10 years plus,
Well-
so I totally understand.
We're experiencing a culture change that we don't have enough information on. is
And
what
the
I'm
fire
hearing.
marshal that come in with, too, with the inspections, very understanding with that and stuff as well. So it's just, it's a step we have to take, it's.
And these folks are more than capable of speaking for themselves. I mean, for me, it was looking at 9 and 10 in concert, because they're really working in concert, as to what that physically looks like, what that financially looks like, and how does that serve the community of Wyman in all those aspects. And it's just, it's hard to discern with the information that we have.
And with the IT issues, it sounds like.
Well, and there's no way to put an exact dollar on this.
Correct.
Because we just don't have all that information yet, but this is all on me. I dropped this. I certainly didn't expect it to, it looks simpler to me, maybe because I understand it more, I guess, is where my mistake was, but it's, I certainly understand how the appearance can be to the council and mayor, so. But if y'all wanna go the direction with a 60-day,
Because if we don't have anything, then nothing's getting done.
Yes.
Right. So.
That's not a good plan.
Permanent work, if you need, what is that? Is that a link built into our website, or is that all through?
So it just depends on the city. So I'll just give examples. Some cities use permitting software that we go directly into and pull the information, upload to ours, review, and re-upload. Some just use a OneDrive, some email. It just depends on what the city prefers. And if I put my sales cap on just for a second, this is one thing that I discovered when I started. I've been in this industry for 2 years, the contractor, consultant side. If you hire 5 or 6 employees full-time with health benefits and everything, we end up cheaper. So that's my sales spiel. I won't say anything else on that.
And if we're funding these systems where they should be, then it's not gonna, we wouldn't see any big difference. The problem is we're not funding these things where they should be, and that's why it looks like there's a big gap. And there is, but we need to fund it to what it needs to be, and this is the step towards that. And then the rest of the pieces, we just have to work through them and, you
And
know.
I assume all of that will present itself in the final budget.
Yes.
How can we, if we say we give you kind of, I guess, 60 days until we kind of get more information and things like that with fees and stuff to compare, how quick can y'all be up and running to service?
So I prefer a kickoff the following week sometime with staff, and then it can be, what system do you guys use? Do you have it in?
Encode.
Oh, Tyler, oh yeah, I used to work with that in Rosenberg. So we would be able to enter there, start pulling permits next day as long as we had the approvals from the IT department. So that's kind of where the gray area on that is we have to make sure we get the permissions from IT to get into the system, and then it starts instantly. So I don't want any misconceptions if it takes a week to get us in there, but, typically, next
Code
day.
enforcement would follow that same kind of timeline.
Correct, yeah, we would set a schedule for the first day that he or she comes out, does their view, and like Richard was saying, it is a weekly process unless you want more, where they come out one day a week, and then the following week, they have everything, well, they have it all drafted up that week, sent out, and they go back to make sure it's completed the following week. So,
If that has not been completed,
and if that's not been completed, we follow citations or any kind of requirements that are written in the code.
and that comes from whoever that
Yes,
inspector is,
correct.
What is the cost for that code enforcement for that day?
Let's see, code, service inspections, that's health code. I feel like I'm missing a page. All right, 1 second. I'm just gonna go based off the health one because it's similar, but it is let's see, 125 a stop, I believe. I'll get you an answer on that. I'll get you a better answer because I thought I had it in front of me, but I might have lost a sheet.
say, that would be, whatever the dollar figure is,
Yeah,
let's say 125, just
sure, right,
per stop.
yeah.
So for every,
Per violation. They're not gonna say,
Per
oh, hey, we're
violation.
stopping by every house on the block and
So-
charging per that. So if they
per
see some-
written violation.
correct, yeah, that's how I handle
Are
it.
they resulting to that on their first stop, or is it gonna be warnings the first?
And again, I need to look through the codes on that, but I think typically it's a warning system, and I believe state law mandates that we have to send out certain notices before we can get into the details of it. I don't know if the city attorney has any input on that, but if they don't bring it in, if they don't comply within a certain day.
He's received many, he's not gonna answer that.
If they don't get it resolved within usually 10 to 15 days, then we have the right to either put a lien on the property or file for citations to start charging them daily, is typically what I see.
It certainly need to be noticed and given the appropriate time to address it. But
correct. It's
if
gotta
it's
be
not
fair.
addressed, we have to do what we have to do.
Correct.
So a little support to you is, we've had some contractors that were asking, could we get stuff online instead of having to come up here?
Mm-hmm.
Which makes it quicker for them.
Yes,
Yeah. So in support of what you're doing,
yes.
or have availability, an online permit is something that's been asked in the past,
And we prefer
and
that.
we've never provided.
Less staples, less
Yeah.
hand cuts. So,
And that permit would generate online, if you go apply online?
So our system generates an approval or denial letter that we use. We can do whatever the city likes. We've had some of our clients say, we like a Word document with your logo on the top. So whatever works best for you, but our system, Community Core is what it's called, does generate a letter that has all comments for resubmittal, the way to resubmit, or just approval. And that can function as a permit unless you have your own permit that you like handing out. But we do like electronic, so if we can help you get to that, we will.
Some of our contractors like to come up here because we have two nice ladies that are at the glass. They want to visit. When David comes up, they don't want to. More questions?
And we can come back and answer more questions. Myself and my ops director were supposed to be here, but her daughter is having a baby, so, today. So, good for her.
Good for her.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else? Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ian.
Yeah, for sure.
So we would necessarily have to take care of 9 to really agree to do something on 10.
My preference, I mean, you could certainly do 10, and you could appoint them for 60 days as council, which I think then satisfies current code of ordinances, because you're the guys that vote on it, and then you can come back in a month and amend mine. Yeah, I think between the two, that you pass 9 and you decide you don't like it, you can always unpass it.
Correct. You can always have an agenda item in.
Nothing's written in stone. You table 9, and I'll defer to nobody, you table 9, and then the only problem then with 10 is that what we would be doing is discussion and action on approval by city council and not city
And
manager.
not city manager.
Right.
So
That's
it's
what
not
9
really on the
does.
agenda, but, again, you get into this, I mean, is somebody gonna call the attorney general tomorrow because we deliberated it?
Yes.
Do this?
Somebody
I
will.
mean, you're right, in this day and age,
Yes.
you'll hear about it on Facebook,
That's a
is what
yes.
I hear.
Well, couldn't you, on 10, couldn't you just approve the city manager to execute a 60-day agreement with them? Wouldn't that achieve the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd be comfortable that satisfies the agenda and it satisfies the ordinances. That if they approve you, executing a 60-day agreement with Build Safe,
Safe.
Safe Build, I'm sorry, Safe Build to perform inspection services for the city. For 60 days. So that would be good because that would cover us well beyond the next council. So we wouldn't be under a time constraint or have some period where, they would be doing something.
You could approve 9 and 10 if you wanted. 9 would cover everything. If you don't like in the 60 days, number 9 comes back up and goes back to whatever language that you want to have done. You want to change.
One thing that's missing, or maybe it's not missing, but animal control, what's happening with that?
The police department is taking care of that.
So citizens can still just call City Hall or?
They can call the police department
Okay.
They'll continue to do that?
for the time being.
We don't, probably not a good process.
If you didn't like, if you approved 9 and you didn't like it within 30 days, you can have it put back as an agenda item to whatever language or option language that you want to have.
Could be on next month's agenda.
Correct. You can then go to number 10 and do a 60-day trial, 30-day trial, whatever number that you guys want. And if you don't like it, then obviously next meeting, you put something back on to what you want. It's in your control right now.
And I believe that
You still control what he does.
given that
Right.
we are probably underpriced, is what I understand.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, that's, we might as well put that out there and it's gonna happen.
That's part of the problem. Maybe a big part of the problem.
And that's maybe why, the funding isn't there to meet whatever we need to do. A city health person, you know, we probably have volunteers for this rather than
That is correct.
professionals.
That's correct.
We have volunteers.
The word certification is very important in what you guys are deciding right now.
You know,
License certification.
I think we obviously have to do something for the next 60 days, and I'm good with that. I think going forward, my opinion, and speaking for myself only, I'm good with fire marshal, I'm good with health officer, we need to outsource, but I would really like to get back to the point where we can have someone licensed qualified for the building inspection and code enforcement on staff. I don't know if it's
Go.
going in-house is what I'm saying. I know that can't happen today. I think that would be something to look at in the future.
Yeah, out of all these, that is the single most difficult one to get back in-house first.
How was the Weimer water? Was it good? Would you like to move to Weimer with, get all these certifications? I just got somebody hired. You want to interview him tomorrow?
It's a good place to live.
Yeah.
I'd love to.
I'll
as
sell
well.
Weimer tomorrow, let me tell you.
Yes,
And that's a pretty tall
that's
order.
the tough one, yeah.
Okay, so do you want to go any more on number 9? Because I don't think we allow you to review everything that you wanted to. I don't even know where you left off.
Are we gonna table 9,
That's up to council.
or?
I almost feel like if we're doing one for 90 and one for 60 days, I mean, if you're gonna come back and address one, and what's the difference if you do both now and readdress it in 60 days? And in my mind, because if they're both gonna end up eventually being another item future.
Well,
And
then
if they're great, then boom, you're
Correct.
already
Then
set.
I'll move forward with, so we're at page 28, the appointment termination, code enforcement. The city manager may engage in consultant services as they deem necessary for code enforcement and other related responsibilities, and may authorize such contracts with consultants for such services as work may be required. And that was under the code enforcement official, Division 8,
Any
page
questions on that?
28.
Yes,
Okay.
we're good.
Page 29, Division 8 Code Enforcement. Is that,
That's the same thing.
It was doubled up.
oh, okay. So I don't need to read that again, do I? Then the pages are gonna be off, I guess. So the
There.
next one's Division 9, City Health Authority. There wasn't any issues with that. It just happens to be in the same chapter. So as they were reviewing it, it came up as well. So, same thing, again, the language, the Office of City Health Authority shall be selected by the city manager, answerable to the city manager, and may be terminated by the city manager with or without cause. The city manager may engage consultant services as they deem necessary for health inspection, plan review, and other related responsibilities, and may authorize such contracts with consultants for such services as the work may require. Any questions there? The next one's Article 3.03, Code Officials. Building official, the building official shall be selected by the city manager, answerable to the city manager, and may be terminated by the city manager with or without cause. The city manager may engage consultant services as they deem necessary for building inspection, plan review, and other related responsibilities, and may authorize such contracts with consultants for full services as the work may require. Next one, Article 5.02, Fire Marshal. The changes is the city manager may engage consultant services as they deem necessary for fire inspection, plan review, and other related responsibilities, and may authorize such contracts with consultants for such services as the work may require. All right, and then we go on to Section 1, ordinance number 02-2024.
Just a quick question before you move forward. And I guess that was part of it too, is, you know, in everything past fire marshal, and of course, then here we do see this office of the fire marshal as opposed to, initially it said the fire marshal. In all the other circumstances, it says the office of. So
Is there a difference?
If I had time, I would actually go in and completely strip all this and start over and rewrite it. But that's not where we were, and it was just quickly go in and review what we got, and let's just make the changes to get to the next step. So, yes, I agree with you. It really needs to be completely rewritten just to flow right and make more sense, but that's
our
what we
language is-
had.
it's just not consistent throughout.
Yes, I agree.
Policies.
I agree, yeah.
And that, I
And
don't
we're
want
gonna-
that causing us problems because we weren't defining
Yeah.
what we meant.
And we're gonna start working through that, because we're actually gonna start reviewing all the ordinances. And if we get to a third party that helps us do, they will help us do all that as well. But in future, it was, this was a pressing issue, but in the future, we would actually be putting those out, presenting that at one council meeting, and then we actually come back at the following council meeting and take action. That's the ideal case, and that's what we will normally do.
And then we
But
could do
in
updates
this-
that way too.
Yes, yeah. But in this circumstances, I was just trying to get us, from one pace to the next pace as quickly as possible, just to keep things moving and stuff.
If, for example, you would make the motion, you could put in there that language could identify one with the other, whatever you're comfortable with. If you were making the motion, I'm not saying that you are.
Well,
Just a consistent language.
if we're gonna have 60 days, we can actually go back and completely rewrite it. But,
And then, one thing on page 31, under section 1.06032, I noticed like it's under the creation of department and jurisdiction. It is marked out for the city council and it's replaced manager. It's just not red in there, just to make sure other council members didn't notice that.
oh, okay, I missed that. Okay.
I have a yellow one for you.
I saw it. It's underlined.
On page 37, you probably need to change the compensation. Right now, it says, city council sets its compensation by resolution.
Yeah, and actually, that's actually the duplicate of what I just went through. It's just, they're different formats, so.
So we
Yeah.
have a whole lot of things that.
Yeah, so we can, we've already gone through it all, so the compensation,
That's the one
yeah.
I put that and started working through.
Say that again, Bo?
37.
On page 37, article 1.05.123, if you were gonna be consistent in the city manager doing this, then you need to be able to decide, you contract with them.
Oh,
Subject to city council approval, but
okay, with the city manager,
Yes.
but set by ordinance or resolution, just like the rest, okay, I follow you.
And I agree, 60 days will give us time to all look at this and, smooth it out a little bit.
No, we actually, so the second piece was actually the ordinance format.
Okay.
The first piece was the revision working document that we got back from Safe Build. So it's the same information, it's in a different format, it's duplicated.
Okay. Y'all follow that, that's great.
Yes,
Yeah, does that make sense?
yes. I
Okay,
have one, yes.
because we've already,
Questions? What would you like to say to them before they either say something or not say something?
I apologize for the confusion and misunderstanding, so my intent was not to rush this for the sake of just to get something by you without you having time to analyze or anything. It was just simply to try to get the ops side quickly up and running as quick as possible. So I guess I just underestimated, especially being in fire service, to me, it seemed clear, I guess, and I just really overlooked that piece of it, so that's all on me, that's my fault, so, but we'll take if that's y'all's desire, we'll take the next 60 days and go back through it.
Is that enough time for you, 60 days?
I think so, yeah. So as long as we have the temporary piece so that we can keep that moving,
Keep going.
then that buys us time to change it to where we need it to be.
And if 60
He's
days
good,
comes,
he's good with
we
60
can
days,
do it
correct?
another 60 days, I mean, if
You're good,
it's,
okay.
he's good with whatever.
Well, let's just move ahead with 10 and rock on.
You want-
We
Well,
want-
9's what's out
Nine,
there
we
right
have
now.
to do something with 9.
Well, I move with table 9. Well,
He's got a
Well, it's probably-
motion. Hold on, he's got a motion. It requires a second to move forward. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second to table number 9. Any discussion?
We could always pass 9 and bring it back up in 60 days to review this language, once we've got time to review it.
Okay.
So the question I'm gonna ask is 9 need to happen in order for you to do number 10?
And that's kind of where I started
Yes, sir.
out. Because they seem to me to be working in concert.
They do.
Correct.
And if you can't really do one without the other, not
That's
really.
what I said earlier. If you do 9 and 10, not that I'm suggesting that, you do 9 and 10, if it doesn't work, you can change it next month. Because right now, these are the ordinances that you have ability as a council to change anytime you want. I mean, you can even call a special meeting if you have to, and you wanted to change something. But right now, what's an agenda item is discussion and action on 9, which is allowing him to do the work. If you don't do that, then your council's making the decision on number 10. Am I understanding that correct, Richard?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's just still in discussion to do table number 9 or not, so anybody else have any?
Okay, so we table 9 and we can go to 10 and we can make that decision as going with the 60-day thing, correct?
Repeat that again.
If we table 9, we can go to number 10 and we can approve, the city can make a motion to approve Safe Built for a 60-day contract.
But we don't have a contract.
Well, we don't have a contract,
Or-
so if you go to 10, you would authorize me to make that agreement with Safe
okay.
Bill.
I got you.
Otherwise, we have to come right back here a month later, and now we've created a month gap that we're trying to avoid, if I'm understanding right, so.
Okay, so we can
You
still
can
do
either
10
table-
today, table 9 and do 10 today, authorizing you to move forward with the 60-day agreement.
In my understanding, no. Bo?
That's ultimately not what he's trying to achieve.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like there may be a possibility that we get 60 days down the road and we actually have a better understanding than what I was able to convey, and we buy into it and we just keep moving forward. So are we trying to maybe put ourselves in a position to keep that? So, go ahead, Bo.
I think, looking at what we're deleting, I think we create problems. if we
Correct.
Don't pass 9.
Correct.
For example, the current
That's where I'm at.
ordinance for fire marshal says it's a 2-year appointment.
Correct.
So if we don't pass 9 tonight, and then we authorize Richard to hire or execute a contract with Safe Built, technically, they're the fire marshal for 2 years. So I would say, from a legal perspective, it's better to pass 9, knowing if we need to, we can revisit 9
Correct.
next month.
Next
Correct.
I mean, we don't even have to wait 60 days.
Yep.
No, please, don't say next week.
So, exactly my thought. I mean, my following with this is 9 was explaining that we are changing everything. Without that, you're going to go and tell him that he can do something and you didn't change this stuff.
Okay, gotcha.
If you go with 9, you're abiding by with what you're trying to do with 10. And when in 30 days or 60 days that you don't like what's happening, that's a great cushion for you. That we can come back and there's new language to be written, to go back to where it was, or you change 1, or you change 2, you change 3, depending on what you guys decide, what you like or dislike. But I don't think I think it's cart before the horse if you do 10 and not do 9.
Correct.
I thought that, but I was.
In layman's terms,
Okay,
yours was
so-
in attorney terms.
So then we need to go through with whatever just happened.
Correct, so I need a vote right now because there was a table
Well,
and
let
a
me ask
second.
this. Per Roy's motion, can he withdraw that motion? If he wanted to.
I would rather it fail. Yes, sir,
Or
because there's
succeed.
been a second, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not suggesting that, I'm just saying that's what I would prefer.
Okay.
Okay, so now we'll vote. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Okay, so to table has failed. Now we're back with agenda item number 9 still, of what you want to do. Now, if there's no motion, nothing happens.
No, we need to, at least move forward.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you have to read all that?
Yeah, do we have to read all this, or can we just say, make a motion, we approve the ordinance amending the Weimar Court of Ordinances?
I'm gonna look to Dolores for that. Are you okay with?
Yes.
Okay, all right, good.
Just
I'm doing all of this and this.
Ordinance update, you don't have to do that.
Okay, I made that motion.
Okay.
She saw it.
Do we have to have in the motion to be reviewed in 60 days?
Reviewing in 60 days.
Okay,
I made a motion.
I'll second.
okay, I have a motion and a second. It's still open for discussion.
Well, in that 60 days, I think it would be very important to make sure that all of that language is aligned and that we're clear on what we're agreeing to.
I think somebody asked for pricing comparisons.
Correct.
Yes.
We'll have a presentation for you then.
There is a novel idea.
Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we'll go to agenda item number 10. Discussion and action on approval for the city manager to execute an agreement with Safe Built to provide building services, code enforcement, and fire marshal services.
I'd move we do a 60-day agreement, or we approve Richard to execute a 60-day agreement with Safe Built to provide building and code fire marshal services.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. It's open for additional discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved.
That was like birthing the Constitution.
We need some Weimar water now. Okay, agenda item number 11, recommendation of staff on proposed tax rate and setting Thursday, September 12th for public hearing on tax rate.
Mayor, council, so we got our property tax statements from the county, and our assessed value is up this year, went up to $260 million, 129, 556. That's the assessed value. And then with the exemptions factored in there, our net taxable value is $245,330,230. So that's up from last year's numbers by $27 million, 301, 395. So there's the rise in that. So with that factored into the new formula that's out by the state now, so that calculates our recommended tax rate to be .254591, which is a reduction from last year's tax rate. And that will generate $624,588, which is an increase of $45,902 from last year. So, and then with that, then again, we are recommending that this rate be set for September 12th for the public hearing for that tax rate.
So we go with the new revenue rate?
It's the voter approval. So actually, that increase is just under that 8%. So
They're just basically putting that for the date of September 12th. correct?
yes.
Yep. We need a motion on that?
So I'll make a motion,
We don't need one, it's just recommendation.
This is just
We're just setting it.
Agenda item number 12, discussion and action on, before I do that one, I just want to go back to 9 and 10 real quick. There are a list of things that are going to happen in the city of Weimar within the next 5 years. And this company and what Richard is trying to do is going to help build that and make it a strong foundation of what we need to do. Now, there might be some insight that it might deter people from coming here, but I kind of think it might be the opposite of that. There's a tremendous amount of stuff that Weimar's got that can happen in the next 5 years, so we're going in the right steps.
Well, as a picture, is that 5 years going to be painted for the city council so that we're aware of what it is?
Economic Development has a meeting next Tuesday. Anybody's welcome. But yes, and I can privately talk to you. That doesn't matter. It's
But
just-
it wouldn't be shared.
Well, it's, I'll give you some, for example, the highway expansion to 3 lanes. I-10 out there is going to have economic development of commercial, astronomical. We have potential movie theater studio coming here. And they're gonna want things to be done right as well. We have a potential German company that wants to come here and open their plant, 115 employees. Things like that needs to be done right in order to protect our citizens, our neighbors, and actually protect them. So there is growth coming, and we have subdivisions, we have housing, we have apartment complex. Those things are on the table to be done within the next 5 years, maybe within the next 3 years. Some things maybe by the end of December, before December gets here. So if we're going in the right direction, to make sure that we're doing the right things. And thank you for that, by the way. Okay, number 12, discussion and action on approval of local procurement policies and procedures.
Mayor, Council, so this time of year, we normally review and update any necessary updates for our local procurement policy, which is actually a section of our fiscal policy. But this year, what adds to that we have to do is council approved recently to apply for a grant for our comprehensive plan update. And as part of that grant, they're requiring that we have a section in our procurement policy that is specific to federal grants. So we've had to include that. So basically what we're recommending for the addition on this is to add this policy language from them to our current procurement policy. And then with that, then moving forward, we will actually move this update into the spring before our budget process starts, because I feel that we need to review and update our fiscal policies and our procurement policies before we go into budget, not kind of after we've done the budget. So that's what we're asking, is that the document before you be added to our current procurement policy.
Anything that you want to point
I
out?
do, because I see this right as much as anybody. I understand the feds may require this, but the problem is
whole
I'm just here to tell you.
conflict of interest question.
Right, and as long, I've been here a long time, I've never seen anyone hide the ball. When there's a family member involved that works for a company the city contracts with, everybody knows it, or it's disclosed, and/or there's an abstention from voting, as necessary. But, I can tell you a problem, a question recently arose that we had to deal with, it was a completely out of bounds allegation, and I'm just trying to avoid that happening every month, that we're having to deal with that. It's not that I'm, as long as everybody's being transparent and there's abstention and disclosures, we need to be able to do that and not have a hard and fast rule about if your family member works for a company that we contract with. I just don't think it's workable in this community.
A couple of words, being fair, that not everything would go to that one person, right? Just being fair. And the other one is we want to buy Weimer. We want to spend money in Weimer, not have to go to another community or so. And that's exactly what you're saying, is just because it's the only business in town that would provide us that product or that service, and we can't do it because they happen to be somebody on council or somebody who works in public works or something. That's not fair to the citizens of Weimer either.
Correct.
We've always leaned towards disclosure and transparency, and I think we would have done well with that. I know you can go online and see everything we spend. There's no secret, and so you can look and, the example, Ed's Car Care, I think, got something, okay, guess what, that everybody knows that's Dolores' husband.
Yep.
But that, and I apologize, I didn't mean to just drop that on you.
That's fine.
We'll blame it on the IT, but I would not recommend that we pass this as worded.
Okay.
We have a pretty strong policy already, and I'm happy to review it with you, review it with council, but it's pretty strong on disclosures, it's on abstentions and conflicts of interest and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Because this as written really is not that, doesn't allow for that, really.
Right, that's the problem, is it doesn't allow any flexibility for someone to say, hey, we all know so-and-so's wife works there, and we're getting ready to let a contract with them. And, everyone says, yeah, we know that, whatever, it's still a good price, and it's local, and both.
Richard, the application that we submitted that was asking to have this attached, or the consultant was asking that we approve this, she went ahead and submitted it with our fiscal policy as is now. So if they throw it back, that's the only time we're gonna need this actually approved. But she wanted it approved, but we could have time for Bo and yourself to look through it and compare what we need to make some changes. This is just one sample that she gave us.
Okay.
I certainly
maybe
think
if
we
he's
want the
concerned.
latitude to buy Weimer when we can.
Correct.
Oh, absolutely.
And if they were a customer 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, we hired someone, that means we can't go back to them. And that's not, where we're fair. It's not fair to those folks.
If it's a great product at the best price,
Yes, sir.
why wouldn't we want to do that?
Correct. And they're local.
And they're local.
Yes, sir.
That's a great triumvirate.
Thank you, Bo. Okay, it's an action item. Wait, any more discussion? It's an action item. I'll call for a motion. Okay, I'll make a second call for a motion. Okay, hearing none, it fails for lack of a motion. Move to agenda item number 13, discussion and action on fiscal policy review. Bo, I'm just kidding.
So my air council, so I was just gonna run through, if I can find my sheet here, I'm in the wrong stack.
Thank you. Safe travels. Take some water with you if you don't.
So from, thank you, Ian. So from our budget workshops, I was just gonna basically run through the summaries again, and there's been very few changes, but I was just gonna run through those, and then there'll be a more detailed budget presentation at the next council meeting, but this is the update numbers.
On 13.
Oh, I'm sorry. No wonder I was out of order. So this is the physical policy. Again, we have no recommendations on this, but this one we will also be moving into spring to review as well. But we don't have any recommendation. We did review it, but there's nothing at this time to update. Accept it as it is.
So I'll make a motion, we accept the physical policy as is.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. It's open for additional discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 14, discussion and action on approval of the city manager to execute an emergency agreement for the repair of water leak at South Mechanic Street under the railroad track.
So Mayor, Council, this is the leak that's right outside here into the track. It's been leaking for at least a year. It's not getting any better, but it's definitely needs to be fixed as soon as possible. So I've been working with Strand Associates, our engineer, as well as getting some prices on it. So in order to make this work, we're not quite sure of the total cost yet because we've had to go in and look at the lines and how can we make that repair. And basically what we're gonna have to do is the feed to this two buildings, us and the post office and then the fire station, is fed off of south of here across the tracks, and that's where the leak is coming from. So the easiest way to fix that leak is to cut that off there and then redirect supply back underneath Main Street, underneath 90 to the other side over there next to Hill Bank and to connect back there. But that has to be done by going underneath the state highway and boring through there. So with that, the engineering cost to do that's up to about $15,000, and then getting an estimate from the plumber is it could cost as much as $50,000, but the material for that we're going to pay. We'll pay the cost of that, so that'll reduce that amount. So that's the price of that leak. So it's
It needs to be done.
it has to be done.
Kick down the road.
Yeah, we.
Yeah.
No kicking this.
It's gone too long as it is, because, we could have a big sinkhole out there with a train going over there, and it would just be a total disaster. So, and even once we get it fixed, we're not out there yet, because it'll take a while for that to dry out and stabilize, because the saturation point is at the railroad tracks, and it goes east past Station 2, past the trees down there. So it's a significant saturation pattern, so.
Make a motion that the city manager be approved to execute an emergency agreement for the repair of water leak at South Mechanic Street under the railroad track.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries. Agenda item number 15, discussion and action on approval of the city manager to execute an emergency agreement for the repair of the water leak at 700 South Eagle.
So this is another ongoing leak. It's been leaking for at least a year, and then it's also connected to a hydrant that's been leaking apparently for about 3 years. So, but this leak is actually underneath 155, right there in front of Stovenall's. Stabenows.
Stab.
Yes, Stabenows.
It's easy.
Yes. So it's been leaking for at least a year, and it's, again, is leaking underneath the state highway. So it's a significant leak, but we have no idea what this is gonna cost till we just get into it and find out exactly what's all involved. So but it has to be done, because it's, again, we're in the same situation. It's a major thoroughfare, and as long as it's been leaking, you know, we could have a big sinkhole or whatever, and we've got to get it addressed.
I would so move.
Second.
Dolores, you good?
Either one.
Either one.
Have a motion and a second. Additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 16, discussion and action on approval authorizing the city manager to create the position of Administrative Services and Human Resources Director.
So, Mayor, Council, so one of the things that you charged me with when I started here was assessing the needs of additional staffing, or what our staffing looked like. So this was a piece that, while, you know, we have staffing shortages and struggles in several departments, this to me was the most pressing position that we needed to work on. The city secretary currently covers the city secretary position as well as HR position, but there's also many other roles that she covers as well, from our housing program management. But those two positions are pretty significant positions, and I feel that the HR, that they both need more attention and more focus, but the HR needs more focus than really what capacity's there. So there's some other areas that I would like to couple with that as we start moving forward through strategic planning and trying to set things in policy reviews, you know, stuff like that. There's a lot of areas that is really not currently being addressed, that this person could easily pick that up and blend that into their role and perform those functions. So I feel this is a critical addition that we need to do for the organization. So I've attached and included the job description of what all those duties would entail.
Do you have a cost in mind?
The salary is, yeah, 70,000 for the salary, and then the overall cost for that with all the other incidentals that go with it. What we're budgeting is $113,108. So, but the salary would be 70,000, because it would be a director level position.
How would that fare against the money we're trying to come up with to deal with all these infrastructure issues, and fund the police department, the needs that the chief has as the CEO, and the size of our community? And I guess that's where I'm a little lost, that wouldn't just fall under the purview of the city manager for a city this size, or it normally doesn't do that?
Well, it normally doesn't do that, but we certainly could. But, I mean, we can continue wearing multiple hats and putting the responsibilities under there, but that's not going to guarantee that the stuff gets done. And that's where we're at now, is too many of our people are wearing too many hats, and the stuff's not getting done, or it's not getting done to the degree that it should be. And that's where we're at, because now you're talking about, when they start wearing multiple hats, then they're not full-time in any of them, they're part-time in them. And we're at a point to where, you know, they need to be devoting more time in certain areas, because the stuff's just not getting done to the degree that it needs to be. And that's creating a lot of our issues, because the attention is not there like it needs to be, because everybody's stretched too thin. So we will be establishing performance measures. We will be looking at just all the tasks and stuff that people are doing and redirecting some of those tasks, because, you know, it might be a situation to where more focus is put on less critical tasks, and so this will help us measure that and monitor that and reevaluate just where is our focus and what are we working on, and maybe we need to be working on more critical areas. But, you know, we have to have systems in place that actually do that, and we have to have somebody that can actually measure those and keep up with those. I can go through and set them in motion, but that don't mean I have the time to monitor them. And that's where we're at in a lot of areas. We can put policy in place all the time, but if we don't have somebody that actually enforces that policy or keeps up with it, then what good did it do for us to even put it in place to begin with? So this person is gonna help monitor that stuff and evaluate it and make sure we're moving towards our goals and objectives.
How do we compare to like north and east and west, you know, LaGrange, Schulenburg, Columbus? Do they have this person?
Yeah. So it's a mixture. Every city kind of tailors those positions to do what meets their needs. So you'll see a little bit of a mixture of it all. So you may have a person that's just at and I can't tell you exactly what Columbus has and what LaGrange has and stuff, but just in my experience in the industry and just knowing what people tailor the positions to what they need to cover. And a lot of times when you create positions tend to evolve into what need to be met at that time. So,
Yeah, I certainly don't disagree with it. I guess I look to some of my school experience. It was a very different life when I worked in HISD, and there were 250,000 students and 13 sub-districts and HR people galore as compared to working in Needville, when as a principal, if the bus broke down, we went and got the bus with the wrecker. That's just how it was done. So, you know, I understand exactly what you're saying, but are we trying to be more than what our finances will allow in light of all of the needs that we have? And, you know, you're the best one to judge that. I'm just trying to, you know, where is that line? Because, you know, we're cutting positions and then we're adding other positions, and we're cutting positions and we're hiring entities. And if that ultimately gets us to where we need to be to serve the community, and it's financially feasible as well as reasonable, then, you know, there's a clear answer there.
well, it's also hard to present and justify our needs and establish performance measures if we don't have the resources to keep up with the performance measures. You know, it's as an individual coming in here and trying to convince you that we need this, well, where's the support and data? Well, I don't have time to keep up with it and track it. Or my input going into it is not credible, and because I don't have time to submit the reports I need so that at the end of the year I have the data to support what I need. You know, and that's kind of where we're at. And it's like, you know, we need one more piece in there to help us start establishing this stuff and be more focused strategically and make sure we're focused on the task we need to be that's going to move the needles, and not on stuff that's less impactful. You know.
When we get budget workshops, did we take this into account at all? And I guess if it's not, wasn't in there, does that surplus to cover that extra $100?
We have we allocated for the money, and so,
Okay.
so we didn't speak at depth to it, but it's,
Okay.
I don't want to answer for him, but I can kind of answer a little bit. It's that one of that culture change again. Weimer's going to grow. There's probably going to be, I'm not saying there's going to be more positions created, but chances are within about 3 or 5 years, there's probably gonna be a need for something else again. And not getting into the financial part of it, but sometimes, one of your questions is what are the other local communities doing? Sometimes we need to be the leader instead of the follower.
And the one thing I know
As
for
long as
sure
the-
is,
The lead doesn't go off the cliff.
Well, I
Well,
totally agree, and I can't answer that.
the one thing I know for sure is we can't keep doing what we've been doing. And that's why we're in the shape we're in. And we've got to start making changes and doing things differently. And this is basically letting go of that cycle that we've been into and going off in a direction. And this position is going to help guide that direction because they're going to carry out a lot of my strategic planning and stuff. So,
And so that financially, when you present that final budget, all of these different things will be in there and it'll be a balanced budget,
oh, yes. Yeah.
no deficit budgets.
No, we have a balanced budget.
That's what I want to hear as well.
Yes.
And I'm sure everybody else is too.
Not trying to get off topic, do we ever hire any kind of public works director, or is that position still open?
It is still open.
Okay. Just curious, that's
Yeah.
another, on top of this, then would be
Yeah,
that.
it's still open.
Gotcha. Do you know if we had much applicants apply?
We
or-
had one applicant and was nowhere near qualified,
Gotcha. That's what I mean, just curious.
so.
And kudos to you, because you didn't hire them just because they were an applicant. Again, we gotta get the right people then
Yeah.
to move forward. And hopefully, if we're
And
going in the right
we-
direction, it'll create more people's interest of coming to work here.
We struggle to get people to want to come to work here, and we have to change that. So we can't keep doing the same thing as we've been doing. We've got to start making changes.
Well, part of that question is also sourced in, I've seen a much larger district, as far as the school world was concerned, and had a large city administrator come in and then add all those positions which were needed according to that person. And then, once that person was dismissed by the board, in a fairly short time, all those positions were pulled. So, I understand what you're saying, because what we have been doing is ultimately not gonna get us where we need to be in the future. And a whole lot of things that we're experiencing are growing pains, because we've kind of backed ourselves into that corner. And the intent was never to do that, but we want to make sure we're prepared to serve the people as we move forward.
Unfortunately, that comes with a cost.
It always does.
Yes, sir.
Is that salary gonna be, I guess, high enough to get an individual that's capable of doing everything that's on here?
I believe so.
Hopefully, somebody will apply.
Correct.
Yeah, hopefully we could have more than one application.
I would move we authorize Richard to create the position, hopefully within the parameters that we feel.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Additional discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. On a lighter note, number 17, discussion on setting the date of employee appreciation dinner.
Mayor, council, staff discussed this, and we are recommending December 13th at 7 or 7:30? 6. Oh, I just missed it all the way around. 5:30? At 6. That's December 13th at 6 o'clock. It's a Friday.
Friday the 13th?
It is.
Oh, my goodness. Are we gonna serve black cat?
We might, that might be,
We might.
we'll get off the ribeyes and we'll have to.
It'll be
make it.
barbecued.
At 6 p.m.?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, December 13th. Okay, 6 p.m. Number 18, discussion on the 2024-2025 budget.
Yeah, so this is the part I jumped ahead to earlier. So the numbers, very little change from the budget workshops, but I'm just going to present the summary of numbers for the different funds right here. But in next month's meeting, you'll actually get a PowerPoint presentation of the budget and where we're
Do we
at.
have that? We don't have that?
You don't have?
No.
No. Well, it was really just my notes that I was pulling from, so,
If you're gonna say something, it's probably good if they have a copy of it.
okay.
David, can you make a quick copy while we do
Well,
other items?
Don't, yeah.
You notes on it, that,
We can go to the other items while you make a quick copy. Fire it up, you know how to work on it.
I mean, we can share too, it's not like you have to make a bunch of, make 3 copies and that's great. Oh, you need one? Okay.
Okay, we will jump to agenda item number 20. Future agenda items. Does council have anything that you would like to have placed on the agenda for the September council meeting? Think long and hard while he is doing those copies. Okay. We will move to agenda item number 21, announcements.
So again, as a reminder,
Talk
TML,
slow.
TML conference is coming up October 9th through 11th, so I believe we've talked to everyone and verified everything. So, because of that, then we will need to move the October's council meeting to October 17th.
Anyone else have any announcement that they would like to make?
Did we have anything for agenda item 19?
No, sir.
No, I'm gonna, when he comes back after he finishes. It would have probably been our last thing, but I'll just say it now, we don't have anything for executive session. So we'll wait for David to bring a few of those copies back. On the announcements, I do have an EDC meeting set for next Tuesday at 1:15 here in the council chambers. So if anyone wants to come to the EDC meeting, obviously it's open to the public. We'd love to have you guys here. I do have someone making a presentation from the movie studio that is hoping to come here. So if you want to come hear their plans, you're more than welcome to come. Does the audience have anything they want to talk about?
What's left?
I was gonna say, now that you have my number, if you could actually send me the information from that meeting. Our press days are on Tuesdays, so unfortunately I won't be able to make it. But
Okay. Oh, okay, absolutely. AB?
Maybe.
It's not that it's tough to do something without it.
Oh, I understand, I just, yeah.
It's okay, we got time. So
Probably
number,
speaking to it more than what was actually intended, but
pardon?
I said I'm probably speaking more to it than what was actually intended for it, but.
Well, it probably had the conversation prior to you being here about having things in front of them. Yeah. I don't know what's on that side.
We can share.
And you can make 2 when we're done.
the machine was sleeping, you're not copying it.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Okay. All good.
Mine too. I not
That didn't
surprised
take
I'm
very
still
long, so
awake.
put that read up.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, David.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so under the general fund, the total revenues, where we're at is, $2,930,845. Total projected expenses is $2,927,225. So that leaves us with revenues over of $3,620. The next page for solid waste, the total revenues for that is $775,590. Total expenses for that is the it's the 761, 898. And then the revenues over our expenses is 13,692. Then on the electric fund summary, the revenues 4,361,672. Then the total expenses for the electric is 4,320,727. So that's our revenues are over the expenses by 40,945. And then water and sewer, the total revenues is $1,369,650. And then the total expenses is $1,333,912. So that leaves us total revenues over our expenses by $35,738. We'll have a more detailed presentation at the next one.
Do you need these back?
No, ma'am.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Have a motion and a second to adjourn at 8:25.